All right, well, today I'm going to be filling out my All-MLB ballot. Now, if you don't know what that is, at the end of every season, MLB puts out fan voting for the All-MLB team. And that's basically the best players at every position. Think of it, it's an all-star team, essentially. So they select a handful of players for each position, and you choose who you think the best is. So I'm going to just be going through each position, and I'll talk a little bit about who I'm picking and why. Although some of these are pretty obvious, some other ones are a little bit tougher to decide. So starting with first base, so they gave us 10 players here. So the standout to me, and the guy I'm going to pick is Vlad Jr. I mean, an absolutely phenomenal year. Uh, the last couple have been tough for him, but this was a return to his form in 2021 when he was an MVP finalist. He's not going to be an MVP finalist this year. There's just too many great players in the AL, just matter of fact, and he's not on a good team. And so that does hurt him with some voters. Luis Arias also, I mean, won a batting title in the National League, 3 in a row, 3 different teams. That's pretty impressive. But he also did it with a worse batting average than Vlad. Also, Josh Naylor had a great year. 30 and 100 is kind of the benchmark for a true slugger. Pasquantino also almost hit 100 RBIs. Would have done it if he didn't get hurt. But yeah, this has got to go to Vlad for me. Now, second base, they've given us less players. Yeah, the only one who I think really deserves the vote here is Ketel Marte. Absolutely phenomenal year. Career high in homers. I believe that's the career high in RBI, too. Could be the third place finisher for MVP on the NL side. It's going to be Ohtani, then it's going to be Lindor, and it could be him. He could be third, which would be a career best for him. He's been fourth before, 2019. Was the NLCS MVP for Arizona last year. They unfortunately just missed the playoffs this year, so he won't have a chance to replicate those playoff heroics this time around. But absolutely phenomenal season. And the rest of these guys, were varying degrees of above average. Andres Jimenez is one of the better defensive players in baseball, period. Marcus Semien had his even year, down year. Terang, an important piece, 50 stolen bases, important piece of those Brewers, who are really good. But yeah, it's got to be Marte. Now on to shortstop, and there's a lot of good shortstops right now. There's a lot of really good shortstops. But obviously I got to pick Bobby Witt. I mean, again, 30-30 season, 109 RBI, batting title, led MLB in batting average, and an OPS that approached 1,000. It was just absolutely amazing. The Royals are kind of the feel-good story of the year up until the Tigers took it from them. But going from a team that I don't believe broke 60 wins last year, that now has a playoff berth and is going to the wild card series against Baltimore. He's going to match up against Gunnar Henderson, which is going to be a lot of fun. Two of the better shortstops in the game. Francisco Lindor, also phenomenal season, put the Mets on his back when they needed him most. But yeah, Bobby Witt, best shortstop in the game. Still very young. Future's bright. Third base. Now, this is a little bit more difficult. There's a few really good third basemen. Alec Boehm looked like an MVP finalist for part of the year. I believe he got hurt at one point. I'm actually not sure. But to me, this comes down to Rafael Devers and Jose Ramirez, and it's got to be Jose. I mean, he was one homer shy of 40-40, and I feel like nobody brought it up. He's probably not a finalist for MVP, which is absolutely crazy that a guy could nearly go 40-40 and, might finish fourth or fifth in MVP voting. But, yeah, best third baseman in the game. Bregman's going to get paid this offseason. He was above average enough. It's not his best season. I don't think it's his worst season, though. Eugenio Suarez, after a really tough first couple months, rounded into form. One of the better pure power bats in the game. 30 homers, 100 RBI. But yeah, J-Ram just does it year after year and doesn't get enough recognition for it. And hopefully he gets this spot. Now, catcher. Okay. So these guys were all varying degrees of good. I know Adley was viewed as a disappointment this year, but he was still about a league average bat. I believe he's still a solid defender. There's a few guys that that stand out above him, though. Wilson Contreras missed too much time. I think he only played about 100 games, so I'm going to cut him. Austin Wells, love the guy. Batting average is frankly too low for the lack of defense that he provides. So I gravitate towards William Contreras, and I know I said average is too low on Wells, and Cal Rally's is lower, but those power numbers are nothing to laugh at, and his defense, he's arguably, depending on the metric, the best defensive catcher in baseball, if not the best. I think he's in the top handful. William Contreras has been getting better defensively, but still, I think, viewed a tier below Cal Raleigh. So it really comes down to what you prefer. I think they're both, more than fair choices here. I think Salvi, you can make an argument for Salvi, just given the power output. But I wouldn't pick him here. He did play a decent amount of first base the last month of the season. So yeah, I think you can pick kind of any of them and justify it well. I'm going to go with William Contreras. I think the average on Cal Raleigh it's just too low. And I know he plays in a tougher park, but Contreras is just such a huge part of that team. All right, DH. This it sucks that this is so easy because Brent Rooker had a phenomenal year. Ozuna, Jordan, all of these guys had amazing years. Schwarber doing things power-wise from the leadoff spot that we very rarely see. It's Shohei. It's Shohei. It's the guy who was a few hits shy of a triple crown, the first ever 50-50, almost hit 60 stolen bases, 1 OPS. It's Shohei. It has to be Shohei. All right, moving on to the outfield. So here we pick 3, and I think 2, and there's more guys I can scroll down and show. So there's, about 15 guys here. So there's 2 who are really easy, and I know I'm a Yankee homer or whatever, but Judge, Juan Soto, they're the 2 easy ones. I mean, Judge is going to be the AL MVP, 58 homers, led baseball in RBIs, crazy OPS. Juan Soto, again, best numbers of his career as far as homers, and I think RBI, I think that's a career high as well. But just absolutely phenomenal years from the 2 of them. I hope Soto stays forever in New York. They're the 2 best outfielders. Now it gets a little bit more difficult. A guy who's not even on this list, Tatis, had a great year. I think only played about 100 games, so wouldn't pick him, but want to recognize how good he was. Dalton Varsho, he's the worst hitter just at the plate of everybody on this list. He's also probably the best defensive player in all of baseball, so I won't be picking him, but just love that he at least made the list because it's a pretty select group. Jackson Chourio had a good rookie year. Mookie Betts, if he had played the whole year and he had played it in the outfield, he'd be the pick. But he played a decent amount of infield. He also missed some time, so I'm going to cut him. Which brings me to the 2 Padres. And I think if I have to pick a Padre, I think I choose Merrill over Profar. I think his season is just a step more impressive than Profar. Especially, he'd never played center field professionally before this year. I think he had a little bit of time in the minors in left field, but to go from being an infielder, I believe primarily a shortstop in the minors, and not playing above Double-A, he never played at Triple-A, and to come into camp, win the center field job, and turn in such a great rookie season, I think I'm going to give it to him. Some other great names on here. Brenton Doyle had a great year. Teoscar, really, really like what he did with the Dodgers. But yeah, so we're going Judge, Soto, and Jackson Merrill. All right, starting pitchers, we pick 5. And we got a bit of a longer list here. So it gets a little bit more complicated when we're picking 5. So I'm going to start with the 2 presumptive Cy Young winners, which is Chris Sale and Tarek Skubal. Skubal is almost guaranteed. Sale, I don't know what the odds look like, but I believe he's still the favorite. 2 absolutely phenomenal years. Skubal breakout pitcher of the year. I believe was the odds-on favorite coming into the year to win the Cy Young. Absolutely proved everybody right. Chris Sale coming off, 5 injury-riddled years with Boston, comes to Atlanta, turns himself around, turns back into the pitcher that we saw for a 7-8 year stretch between the White Sox and the Red Sox, and absolutely lights out all year, crazy strikeout numbers. So the two of them make the list. I think the next one I'm going to choose, and this may be controversial because he's a rookie and didn't play the whole season, but what Paul Skeens did this year is just too impressive for me to ignore. Sub-1 whip, worked, I think, more innings than he ever had. And to come from being drafted less than a year before he debuted in the major leagues, very impressive. He tore everybody up all season. My head next goes, and maybe I should scroll up so I don't forget these guys at the top. I think the next guy I got to pick is Zach Wheeler. I mean, he was the MLB leader in strikeouts on the year. Again, sub-1 whip, 2.5 ERA. He is the ace of either the best or second best team in baseball, and was every bit worth the new money that they gave. I don't know if his extension kicked in. No, I think it kicks in next year. But they gave him a sizable extension. He's getting paid. He deserves it. All right, now for the last one, this is the problem. There are too many good starting pitchers. I mean, Hunter Green was phenomenal this year. The Royals guys were phenomenal this year. Reynaldo Lopez, I think, missed a little bit too much time for me to pick him. Corbin Burns, absolutely phenomenal walk year. Dylan Cease, another crazy strikeout year. Like Crochet, to go from a guy who had never started a major league game and start opening day and absolutely tear everybody up on a terrible team. Like, he deserves some recognition, but I think here I'm going to go with Logan Gilbert. And this may be controversial. I think he's the best pitcher of that absolutely phenomenal Mariners rotation. I think between him and Kirby and Castillo and Bryce Miller and Brian Wu, I think he's the standout to me. I mean, sub .9 whip, 220 strikeouts. Like, yeah, the win-loss isn't great, but the Mariners, weren't an amazing team. The ERA is a bit high, but every time I watch him, he blows me away. And so that's probably the pick that is going to be the least popular among these. I think these four are kind of slam dunks. And Bryce Miller had a great year. Like, nothing wrong with a bunch of these picks. Shota was Rookie of the Year frontrunner for a while. Nothing wrong with picking a whole bunch of these guys, but these are the 5 that I've settled on. And now relievers, we get 2. You can't start this conversation without picking Clase. He just, again, I think he gave up like 5 earned runs all year. Didn't strike out a ton of guys, but didn't need to. Solid defense behind him, but he took full advantage of that, which is one of the greatest relief pitcher seasons that we've seen in a while. And then if we look at the rest of this list, like, the guys who jump out to me, it's Ryan Helsley, Raisel Iglesias, and Mason Miller. And I'm not going to pick Helsley, but I think just the fact that he got 49 saves on an 83-win team is absolutely impressive. Is just the Cardinals were not a team that was blowing anybody out. They had so many close games. And the fact that they turned to him basically every time, and basically every time he shut the opponent down, and relatively low whip, relatively high strikeout rate. Like, he had a really, really good season. And now we come to Iglesias and Mason Miller, and they both did just some historic things this year. Iglesias had his shutout streak of, I don't even remember how many innings. It was absolutely phenomenal. And Mason Miller throws the ball like 105 miles an hour and gave up 1 earned run in the first couple months of the season. And honestly, I think I got to give it to Mason Miller. The strikeout rate is just, it's like, prime Edwin Diaz. It's just 14 and a half strikeouts per 9 is like just completely unbelievable. It's off the charts. But I think Iglesias deserves some recognition. He did some really phenomenal things for the Braves this year. All right. So just to recap, here's our team. We got Vlad Jr. at first, Ketel Marte at second, Bobby Witt Jr. at short, J. Ram at third, William Contreras behind the plate, Ohtani at DH. Outfield of Aaron Judge, Jackson Merrill, Juan Soto. Our rotation is Gilbert, Sale, Skeens, Skubal, and Zach Wheeler. And in relief, we've got Clase and Mason Miller. So again, there's some here, like, I don't think you can go wrong picking most of the starting pitchers they've got on here. But some of these, like, I think Ketel Marte is a slam dunk. I think Judge and Soto are slam dunks. So I'm really interested to see, who ends up winning these All-MLB spots. I think we find out in like mid-November. It's after the World Series, so it's going to be a little while, but the voting is now because they don't want people taking the playoffs into account. Anyways, if you want to go on and put these votes in yourself, put your own votes in, I've got a link to the ballot in the description. So, check that out if you're interested. I'm going to have another trade tree up in the next couple weeks. It's a fun one honoring the history of the Oakland A's as they are now leaving the city of Oakland. I figured let's do a trade involving the last 15, 20 years of Oakland A's baseball. I'll see y'all next time.